Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new series, Trauma in the Bible. How do we heal? Can we heal from trauma in the Bible? Can we find things in the Bible that will help us on our journey to healing? Whether it's our self-help journey or we're going to use it alongside therapy and other kind of therapies, can we find the things in the Bible that we need to heal from trauma? Now, as a counselor and as a speaker, I've spoken up and down the UK, and there are certain things that I see that are consistent with us as Christians. There are many Christians, there are many myths around therapy which have prevented people from getting help and support. There are many people who are ill, both mentally and physically, from the effects of trauma, but because they believe the Bible tells them that they shouldn't get help, then many people suffer long and don't get help. And my heart is broken every time I hear about somebody else who's sectioned, somebody else with an illness that could be preventable because the repressed pain is expressing itself in mental health crisis or in a physical health crisis. And sometimes there's a fear of talking, because one of the natural outfall of trauma is trust. Trust is naturally impacted. Those of us who experience trauma know the struggle to trust our friends, the struggle to trust family, the struggle to trust God. And in that struggle, although there are many who probably won't acknowledge it to themselves that there's a struggle to trust God, He doesn't have access to our pain. So I decided that we would start this journey throughout September. Join us here every day at lunchtime, UK time. So that's 1 p.m. GMT time, where we are going to talk about places in the Bible where we can heal from trauma, how we can find resources in the Bible that we can heal from trauma. Now, I could tell you that if you just spend time with only the book of Isaiah, you'll find enough there that will begin to help you. But I'm not only just going to tell you, I'm going to walk with you through that journey as we dive deep into the Word of God and find things that we might need to help us to deal with trauma. So I want to start with John 11:35. You may know it. Jesus wept. Now, why am I starting with that verse? Because I want to set the stage for us and how we're going to proceed with this healing through the Bible. John 11:35 talks about Jesus wept. Now, the Bible also tells us in Isaiah 53 that he was wounded for our transgressions and he was bruised for our iniquities. And he also tells us that he has borne all of our griefs and carried our sorrows. So here is Jesus that can understand our sorrows. He can understand our pain. He can understand the things that we're going through. But because we've been wounded, because our trust was broken, we struggle to take things to him. So what can we learn from him that can take us through? So I'm starting with John 11:35 that says Jesus wept, because it sets the scene, as I said, for how we're going to proceed. Now, one of the things I know from many years of working with people who have experienced trauma, that trauma needs witnessing, that healing needs witnessing. When our pain can be witnessed, when our pain can be heard, when our pain can be held, when people who hear our pain can understand it, it really does help with the healing. And that's one of the many reasons why I like to do groups, because when we do group work, we are sharing our pain in a space that is safe with people who can hear it, people who can understand it, people who can empathize with us, and that helps us on our journey of healing. So even though the Bible tells us that Jesus understands, that he has borne all of our griefs and carried our sorrows. And what does that mean? What kind of grief has he borne? As I said, John 11:35 talks about Jesus wept. And this happened when Mary and Martha's brother Lazarus was unalive, and he was buried, and there was mourning. They had sent to call for Jesus before, and he took 4 days before he went to see Mary and Martha. Now, he went, and people were saying, well, these people are his friends. How come he's just going to see them now? Right? So he went to see them, and everybody was crying. I mean, it was a loss, and people were mourning deeply for their friend and for their brother. And the Bible said Jesus wept when he came on the scene. Now, as I was preparing to go speak at a bereavement session, a bereavement session for families of the bereaved, I used that passage, and as I dive deeper into that passage, into the Bible commentaries, and look what commentators had said about that verse, it gave me an understanding that I didn't have before. It says Jesus weeping was about his, it wasn't the weeping that he did over Jerusalem, where he mourned, oh Jerusalem, Jerusalem. It wasn't that kind of weeping. Jesus is weeping at the grave of Lazarus. Jesus is weeping when he went with Mary and Martha, was about him. It was human suffering. His anguish was because he connected with human suffering, because he saw their suffering, and that's part of why Jesus wept when he went there. Now I'm using that as the place to start from, to let you know that when you are crying, as you are in your deep anguish, as you are in your suffering, as you're in your pain as a result of trauma, I want you to know that he knows, he can feel that suffering. His humanity, Jesus, when he was here and, being there in that place where everybody else was weeping, he was not unaffected by their anguish. And one of the things I noted was that he didn't say to them, stop crying, because he knew he was going to raise Lazarus. But he didn't say, stop crying, he's going to be raised and everybody's going to be fine. He wept with them. He joined in human suffering. How does it feel when somebody cry with you and for you? When somebody feels so deeply on your behalf and you know that you're not alone, it gives that feeling of you're not alone. Sometimes when I'm doing work with people and I feel a connection to their suffering and I feel it and I express it and I say, I feel this. And they can understand. And just that oneness in that space when we're both feeling for the loss and for this trauma that is happening, and that human connection that is so significant and so healing. I want you to take away that today, that Jesus wept, that he is with you, that surely he knows about your suffering and that you're not alone. So join us every day here at 1 p.m. GMT time as we look for evidence in the Bible that we can use to help us heal from trauma.